Today I can proudly report that on the edge of our 250th year, America is back. It's back. It's back. I believe better than ever before. And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years. From the very beginning of our country, American greatness has been forged by people of faith, and the very first settlers who set foot upon this new world at Jamestown got off their ship, raised up a cross, and bowed down to the Lord in prayer. It was faith that strengthened the Minutemen and who stood up at Lexington Green and Concord Bridge in Philadelphia 250 years ago. Next week, our founders invoked the Creator 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. 4 times. I wasn't mentioned once. I'm very upset. Not once. Faith pushed the pioneers to journey west. Faith led Americans to abolish slavery, and faith built this country into the most exceptional nation in the history of the world. It was going very badly a couple of years ago, very badly, but it's back really strong. But we have to be very careful because bad things are happening. Can I watch what's happening? And we're going to be discussing that in just a minute. Americans have always deeply believed in the promise of Christ's words in the Gospel of Matthew. With God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible, right? All things. That's why as we prepared to enter the 250th year last month, tens of thousands of patriots came together on our National Mall, and we officially rededicated America as one nation under God. And we're not changing. We're not changing. And we always have been, and we always will be. We're not going to let them take it away. But as we celebrate this anniversary, we must also remember that our country could have been marking this occasion under very different circumstances. The last administration carried out a reign of persecution and repression against Christians and people of faith like America has never seen before. It's terrible. They turned a nation founded on freedom for believers into a place where Catholics were targeted by the FBI, where pro-life grandmothers were put in jail for praying, and where members of our military were thrown out of the armed forces for their religious beliefs. The radicals responsible for these offenses would have loved nothing more than to mark America's 250th anniversary by driving God from our public square
Mormons are not Christians, according to the U.S. federal government. The Department of Defense revising its list of religious codes, no longer designating the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as Christians. The Pentagon says the change is meant to help chaplains. Mormons, though, and Utah senators are now demanding that the military rectify that change. Mormons
we associate the South with religiosity now, but stay tuned. So what's behind these regional differences? Well, let me first show you adherence rate, this one, versus white-only adherence rate. Now there's not as much difference between the southern colonies and the others, huh? So 42% of people in the southern colonies at this time were enslaved people, and a large portion of them were not involved in church. Even if they wanted to be, then there were problems with that. In fact, the Church of England held until well into the 19th century that blacks were not sufficiently human to be baptized, and several British colonies imposed heavy fines on Quakers for doing so. I guess they didn't care very much about that Bible story about the conversion of the Ethiopian eunuch. I mean, this is in the Bible. This is in a well-read book of the Bible, in the New Testament. Like, what? Racism making them bad at their own religion, I guess. Now, does this mean that these uncounted enslaved people were not religious? No. Plenty of enslaved people kept their African spiritual traditions alive in different ways for a long time, throughout colonial times, even up until after the American Revolution. But for the authors I'm citing here, this is not counted. That's really a shame, but I don't think we have the data to factor this in regardless. The same goes for the native people of the time. Plenty of them were not Christian, they practiced their own traditions, but they were not counted here. This is exclusionary in a way, but in another light, it can make some sense. Religion is a rather European term in the first place, and placing that label on the traditions of the African and Amerindian people in this context might lead us to project some European ideas of what spirituality and tradition looks like onto them. And that's inappropriate, I think. So, I don't know, there'd still be a complex discussion to be had over how things should be classified and counted, even if we did have data on everyone who lived in this area at the time. I want to point out a massive difference that slavery makes in this equation. So look at South Carolina at 14%. That's one of the least religious colonies. And then if you just look at white adherence rate, it shoots up to 31%, which makes it the most religious colony for white people out of all of them. So this means that South Carolina both had a ton of slaves and that the white slavers were more religious than any of the other white people throughout the colonies. It's hard. No, it's not. It's not actually difficult to imagine religion and slavery going together. Not in America. No, it's not. It's not actually difficult to imagine religion and slavery going together. Not in America. I'm sorry, it's not. It actually makes sense in my head. I wish that I didn't have to say that, but that is kind of the world we live in, isn't it? I don't say that as an anti-religious thing. It's more of just a stain on the American religious story. Oh, we see something similar for Georgia as well. It goes from 7%, one of the absolute least, if not the least religious colony, to 20%. I don't like this math. I don't like what it implies. Okay, so why are religious adherence rates so low for this time as compared to even now? There are two primary reasons. First of all, the U.S. at this time was still the frontier for Europeans, at least. As the authors of this book that I've been quoting, The Churching of America, say, by definition, a frontier is an area of a new settlement and rapid population growth. As a result, frontiers are populated with newcomers and strangers. Quite aside from whether those attracted to frontiers tend to be deficient in moral character, wherever large numbers of people lack social ties or what are often called interpersonal attachments, the result is social disorganization. So a lot of people were new, there weren't as many social ties, so there wasn't a lot of religious belonging and community to be had yet. Vermont was more...
There has never been a Christian nation. You don't live in one now. We had godly people get on boats and come over here so they could worship. Godly people. We've had the greatest Bible preachers in the 15, 16, 1700s. Godly people. Some of the people that constructed this country, godly people. But it has never been a Christian nation and never will be. A Christian nation would never have killed and displaced 20 million Native Americans who are still left out and living in poverty. A Christian nation would never have thought that owning slaves was pleasing to God, or that it lined up with Scripture in any way, shape, or size. And we not only practiced it, but we were so obsessed with it that we went to war about it. We had a civil war. And in that civil war, 500,000 Americans died. That's more than Americans that died in World War II or any other war we've ever had. Our own civil war. We killed 500,000 of our own people so people could have the right to own other people as property. There has never been a Christian nation. You don't live in one now. We had godly people get on boats and come over here so they could worship. Godly people. We've had the greatest Bible preachers in the 15, 16, 1700s. Godly people. Some of the people that constructed this country, godly people. But it has never been a Christian nation and never will be